My name is Seraphina Cross, and I'm 28 years old. Last Christmas, I watched my parents break into my million-dollar manor with bolt cutters while my siblings cheered them on from the driveway. You see, for 23 consecutive years, they forgot to invite me to Christmas dinner. This year, I decided to flip the script entirely. I bought the family's dream estate right out from under them, then sent them an invitation they couldn't ignore. What happened next destroyed our family forever, but revealed a truth so devastating it changed everything I thought I knew about my own identity. But before we dive into how I orchestrated the most satisfying Christmas revenge in family history, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more family drama stories that'll leave you questioning everything. Trust me, this tale of Christmas karma is about to get wild, so buckle up. Growing up as the middle child in the Cross family should have been unremarkable, but somehow I became the family ghost. While my older sister Madison received elaborate birthday parties and my younger brother Tyler got every gaming console known to mankind, I learned to celebrate my own achievements in solitude. The pattern started when I was 5. My parents simply forgot to set a place for me at Christmas dinner. When I asked where I should sit, my mother Patricia looked genuinely surprised, as if she'd forgotten she had 3 children instead of 2. "Oh honey, we didn't know you were still here," she'd say with that vacant smile I'd grown to despise. "Why don't you make yourself a sandwich?" Year after year, the same script played out. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, every major family gathering somehow occurred without anyone remembering to include me. I'd watch from my bedroom window as relatives arrived with gifts for Madison and Tyler, their cars packed with presents that never had my name on them. My parents would post elaborate family photos on social media, carefully cropped to exclude me, captioned with heartfelt messages about their complete family happiness. The breaking point came last December 26th. I'd spent another Christmas alone in my apartment, ordering Chinese takeout and watching Netflix, when my phone buzzed with notifications. Madison had posted a carousel of images from their intimate family Christmas. There was Tyler opening a MacBook Pro, Madison unwrapping jewelry, my parents toasting with champagne in crystal glasses I'd never seen before. The final photo showed them all wearing matching pajamas, arms linked, faces glowing with genuine joy. But it was the caption that shattered something inside me, so grateful for our perfect little family of 4. Sometimes the best gifts are the people you get to call home. 4. Not 5. 4. I screenshot every image, saved every caption, documented every deliberate exclusion. Then I did what any rational person would do. I hired a private investigator named Marcus Webb to dig into my family's finances. What he discovered 3 weeks later made my blood run cold. "Your parents have been receiving survivor benefits," Marcus explained during our coffee shop meeting, sliding a manila folder across the table. "Social Security death benefits, to be exact. For a deceased child." My hands trembled as I opened the folder. There it was, in black and white, death certificate for Seraphina Cross, dated December 24th, 15 years ago. Cause of death listed as accidental drowning during family vacation. The document bore official state seals, witness signatures, and my parents' sworn statements describing how their beloved middle child had tragically perished on Christmas Eve. "They've been collecting approximately $800 monthly for 15 years, Marcus continued. "That's over $140,000 in fraudulent death benefits. According to these records, you've been legally dead since you were 13. The room spun around me. I gripped the edge of the table, forcing myself to breathe as the implications crashed over me like a tsunami. My parents hadn't just forgotten me, they'd literally erased me from existence for profit. Every Christmas I'd spent alone, every birthday ignored, every family photo I'd been cropped from suddenly made horrific sense. I wasn't their daughter who'd been overlooked. I was their deceased child who inconveniently kept showing up. How is this even possible?" I whispered. "Bureaucratic oversight mostly. You were homeschooled until high school, right? No regular institutional oversight. When you applied for college financial aid at 18, you probably used a different Social Security office than where they filed the death claim. The systems don't always communicate effectively, especially across state lines. I thought back to my college years, how my parents had seemed almost annoyed when I graduated, like I was ruining some private joke. How they'd forgotten to attend my graduation, despite promising they'd be there. How every achievement I'd earned felt hollow because the people who should have been proudest acted like I was an inconvenience. There's more, Marcus said gently. Your college fund, the one they claimed was empty when you applied for student loans? It's still there. Untouched. Approximately $200,000, earning interest. The betrayal cut so deep I couldn't speak. While I'd worked 3 jobs to pay for college, while I'd eaten ramen noodles for months at a time, while I'd deferred my dreams because I couldn't afford them, my parents had been sitting on my education fund like dragons hoarding gold. They'd watched me struggle, watched me sacrifice, watched me rebuild my life from nothing, all while profiting from my supposed death. But the final document in Marcus's folder was what transformed my heartbreak into something crystalline and sharp. It was a copy of their will, updated just 6 months ago. Madison inherited the house. Tyler inherited the business. I wasn't mentioned anywhere because, legally, I didn't exist to inherit from. What kind of timeline are we looking at for legal action? I asked, my voice steady despite the volcanic rage building in my chest. Social Security fraud of this magnitude? We're talking federal charges, potential prison time, full restitution plus penalties. But Seraphina, Marcus leaned forward, his expression serious. Once you report this, there's no going back. This will destroy your family completely. I stared at the death certificate bearing my name, at the signatures of parents who'd sworn I was gone forever. They'd made their choice 15 years ago when they decided I was worth more dead than alive. Good, I said, closing the folder with finality. They destroyed me first. Walking out of that coffee shop, I felt something I'd never experienced before, absolute clarity. For 28 years, I'd blamed myself for not being lovable enough, not being memorable enough, not being worthy of their attention. But this wasn't about my shortcomings. This was about their greed and their willingness to sacrifice their own child for monthly payments. The little girl who used to cry herself to sleep on Christmas night was gone. In her place stood a woman who'd learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting mad, it's getting mathematical. I spent the next month in what I can only describe as calculated hibernation. My cozy downtown apartment became mission control for the most methodical takedown in family history. I took a leave of absence from my marketing job, claiming I needed time to handle a family inheritance situation, which wasn't technically a lie, since I was about to inherit their entire world of problems. The first step was understanding exactly what I was dealing with. Marcus had provided the framework, but I needed the complete picture. I hired a forensic accountant named Dr. Elena Vasquez, who specialized in financial fraud cases. Her initial assessment was even more damning than I'd expected. Your parents have been remarkably thorough, Elena explained during our video call, her screen split between spreadsheets and official documents. Beyond the death benefits, they've been claiming you as a dependent on their taxes while simultaneously receiving survivor benefits. Double dipping, essentially. They've also taken out several credit cards in your name over the years, using your social security number but listing their address. My stomach dropped. Identity theft on top of everything else. It appears so. The good news is that because you're legally dead in their system, these debts can't be traced back to you easily. The bad news is that they've been building a financial house of cards with your identity as the foundation. Elena's investigation revealed that my parents had used my death as a springboard for multiple schemes. They'd collected life insurance payouts from policies I'd never known existed, received victim compensation funds from the state, and even started a small memorial scholarship in my name, which they administered and somehow never awarded to anyone. But the most infuriating discovery came when Elena traced their recent property purchases. Remember that dream house they'd been obsessing over for years? The sprawling colonial estate with the circular driveway and the 3-car garage that my mother photographed herself in front of every few months, captioning it "Manifesting Our Forever Home." They'd been approved for the mortgage using my death benefits as proof of stable income. "They're literally building their dream life on your grave," Elena said bluntly. "And according to these mortgage documents, they're planning to close on Christmas Eve, 15 years to the day after your supposed death." The symbolism was so twisted it was almost artistic. But it also presented an opportunity that made my heart race with possibility. "Elena," I said slowly, "what would happen if I bought that house first?" The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, Elena laughed, not a polite chuckle, but a full-throated sound of delighted disbelief. "That would be the most poetic justice I've ever seen in 20 years of financial investigations. Let me make some calls." By the end of that week, I had a plan that was part legal strategy, part psychological warfare, and part pure theater. The house my parents coveted, the one they'd been obsessing over, photographing, and planning their future around, had been quietly taken off the market. Not because someone else bought it, but because I'd made the sellers an offer they couldn't refuse. Full asking price, cash, no inspection needed, closing in 72 hours. The beauty of working in marketing is that you learn how to research your target audience. I knew my family better than they knew themselves. I knew Madison's weakness was social media validation, Tyler's was gaming, and my parents' shared obsession with status symbols. The house wasn't just a property to them, it was a trophy, a symbol of their successful scheme, their reward for 15 years of fraud. Taking it away would be like stealing their identity. But I wasn't content with just buying their dream house. I wanted them to come to me. I wanted them to break down the barriers they'd built to keep me out. I wanted them to literally break into my space, so desperate to reclaim what they thought was theirs that they'd commit new crimes in broad daylight. The plan required perfect timing and careful manipulation. 2 weeks before Christmas, I had my lawyer send my parents a formal letter, written on expensive letterhead and delivered by courier. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Cross, you are cordially invited to attend Christmas dinner at the Willowbrook Estate, located at 847 Magnolia Lane, on December 25th at 3:00 p.m. This invitation extends to Madison and Tyler Cross as well. Please note that this gathering will serve as both a celebration and a reckoning. Your attendance is strongly encouraged. The menu will feature all your favorites, including the truth served ice cold. Warmest regards, your allegedly deceased daughter, Seraphina Cross." I included photos of the house's interior, the formal dining room they'd dreamed of hosting in, the kitchen with the marble islands my mother had pinned to 17 different Pinterest boards, the master bedroom with the walk-in closet that had featured in my father's vision board for 3 years. But the final touch was the key, an ornate, antique skeleton key attached to red velvet ribbon with a note, "The door is locked. But then again, you've always been good at pretending I don't exist." Let's see how creative you get when something you actually want is behind a barrier. I knew my family well enough to predict their reaction with scientific precision. They'd see the house they'd lost, realize I'd somehow gotten what they wanted, and their greed would override any common sense they possessed. They wouldn't call the police because they couldn't risk official scrutiny of their finances. They wouldn't ignore the invitation because their curiosity and entitlement wouldn't allow it. They'd come. And when they couldn't get in through conventional means, they'd find another way. The security system I'd installed was state-of-the-art, with cameras positioned to capture every angle of the property. I'd hired Marcus not just as an investigator, but as a witness, along with Elena and my lawyer, Rebecca Martinez. On Christmas morning, we'd all be hidden in the house, watching my family incriminate themselves in real time. But the most satisfying part of the plan wasn't the cameras or the witnesses or even the legal implications. It was the guest list for the actual dinner party I'd prepared. Agent Patricia Wells from the Social Security Administration's Office of Inspector General would be joining us, along with Detective Michael Foster from the Financial Crimes Unit and Sarah Chown from the District Attorney's Office. I'd prepared place settings for everyone, including my family. We were going to have that Christmas dinner they'd excluded me from for 23 years. Only this time, I'd be the host, and the main course would be justice. The week leading up to Christmas felt like preparing for war, if war required place settings and perfect lighting for security cameras. My temporary headquarters at the Willowbrook estate buzzed with activity as I coordinated the most elaborate holiday trap in legal history. Marcus arrived Monday morning with surveillance equipment that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. "We're going full documentary style," he explained, installing nearly invisible cameras throughout the property. Every angle, every conversation, every moment of their inevitable breakdown. This footage will be admissible in court, so we need it crystal clear. The house itself was magnificent, everything my parents had dreamed it would be, but better. 6 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and a kitchen that could have been featured in Architectural Digest. I'd spent 3 days furnishing it with pieces from their Pinterest boards, creating the exact aesthetic they'd been fantasizing about for years. Tuesday brought Elena with her briefcase full of evidence and a laptop containing what she called the complete Cross family financial autopsy. We spread documents across the dining room table like crime scene photos, each piece of paper representing another year of theft, another lie, another betrayal. The total amount they've stolen, including the death benefits, tax fraud, credit card debt in your name, and the scholarship fund they never distributed, comes to just over $400,000, Elena said, highlighting numbers that made my head spin. But here's the beautiful part. Because they reported you as deceased, every dollar they've spent has created a paper trail that leads back to fraud. Rebecca Martinez, my lawyer, arrived Wednesday with an energy that immediately put me at ease. She was exactly the kind of attorney I'd hoped for, sharp, ethical, and absolutely thrilled by the complexity of the case. "I've been practicing family law for 15 years, Rebecca said, reviewing Elena's financial breakdown, and I've never seen anything quite this comprehensively fraudulent. Your parents didn't just commit one crime, they built an entire criminal enterprise around your supposed death." But Rebecca's most valuable contribution wasn't legal expertise, it was emotional preparation. She'd handled dozens of family fraud cases and understood the psychological toll of betrayal by blood relatives. "Seraphina, I need you to be prepared for what's coming," she said gently. "When people are caught in lies this deep, they don't typically respond with remorse. They respond with rage. Your family is going to attack you personally, question your motives, and try to make you feel guilty for exposing them. Are you ready for that level of emotional warfare?" I thought about 13-year-old me, sitting alone in my room while my family celebrated Christmas downstairs without a thought of inviting me. I thought about 18-year-old me, working 3 jobs to pay for college while my education fund sat untouched in an account I didn't know existed. I thought about every birthday, every holiday, every achievement celebrated in solitude while my parents profited from my supposed death. "I've been at war with them my entire life," I said. "I just didn't know I was fighting." Thursday brought the federal agents, and suddenly my elaborate revenge plot became very real. Agent Patricia Wells from the Social Security Administration was exactly what you'd picture from Central Casting. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, and a demeanor that suggested she'd seen every type of fraud humanity could devise. "Miss Cross," she said, settling into one of my carefully chosen dining room chairs, "this case represents one of the most systematic benefit frauds we've investigated in this region. The documentation you've provided, combined with Miss Vasquez's financial analysis, gives us everything we need for federal charges." Detective Michael Foster arrived with Agent Wells, bringing the local law enforcement perspective. He was younger than I'd expected, with an easy smile that didn't quite hide the intensity in his eyes. "The identity theft alone is enough for state charges," he explained. "But combined with the federal fraud, we're looking at potential prison time for both parents. Have they made any attempt to contact you since receiving your invitation?" That was when I showed them the messages. My parents had been remarkably restrained for exactly 48 hours after receiving my invitation. Then, apparently, the pressure became too much. My phone had buzzed with increasingly frantic texts from my mother. "Seraphina, this isn't funny. How did you get this house? Your father is very upset. You need to call us immediately. We don't know what game you're playing, but it stops now. And finally, the message that sealed their fate. We're coming to get what's rightfully ours. Madison had been more direct on Instagram, posting a series of stories about family betrayal and ungrateful siblings who don't understand sacrifice. She'd apparently driven by the house multiple times, posting dramatic selfies with captions like, "Some people don't deserve the families they're born into." Tyler's approach was typically Tyler. He'd attempted to hack into my social media accounts and, when that failed, had started a group chat with Madison and my parents titled The Seraphina Problem. Marcus had been monitoring all of their communications through entirely legal means, social media, public records, and the security system they didn't know was already installed at their old house, which I'd purchased from their landlord with an offer he couldn't refuse. They're planning to come Christmas morning, Marcus reported Friday evening. Tyler thinks they should just break in and change the locks. Madison wants to call the police and claim you're trespassing in their house. Your parents are debating between bolt cutters and hiring a locksmith. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. My family, who had locked me out of their lives for over 2 decades, was now planning to break into mine. Friday night, Sarah Chen from the district attorney's office arrived for our final strategy session. She brought an energy that filled the room. This case wasn't just about justice for her, it was about sending a message. Family fraud cases are notoriously difficult to prosecute because juries tend to sympathize with families in crisis, Sarah explained. But your parents crossed every possible line. The premeditation, the duration, the absolute disregard for their living child, it's sociopathic behavior disguised as parental authority. We spent hours reviewing every detail, every piece of evidence, every possible legal angle. But as the evening progressed, something unexpected happened. These people, Marcus, Elena, Rebecca, Agent Wells, Detective Foster, and Sarah, stopped feeling like hired professionals and started feeling like something I'd never had before. They felt like family. You know, Rebecca said during a quiet moment, I've worked plenty of family revenge cases. But I've never seen someone handle betrayal with this much grace and intelligence. Your parents raised a remarkable daughter, despite their best efforts to destroy her. Elena nodded enthusiastically. The strategic thinking, the emotional control, the pure poetry of this plan, you've turned your pain into power. That's not just revenge, that's alchemy. As we finalized plans for Christmas morning, I realized something profound had shifted. For 28 years, I'd been the outsider looking in, watching other people experience the warmth of family connection. But here, in this house bought with determination and furnished with justice, I'd accidentally created what my biological family had never given me, a chosen family built on respect, honesty, and shared purpose. Tomorrow, my parents would bring bolt cutters to break down my door. But I'd already found something far more valuable than their approval. I'd found people who saw my worth without needing to be convinced of it. The trap was set, the evidence was gathered, and justice was about 12 hours away. But sitting in that dining room, surrounded by people who'd chosen to stand with me, I'd already won the most important victory. Christmas morning dawned crisp and clear, like the universe itself was providing perfect lighting for the most satisfying family reunion in history. By 7 a.m., my chosen family had assembled in the house, each person positioned strategically throughout the rooms with clear views of multiple camera angles. Marcus stationed himself in the library with his laptop, monitoring all security feeds in real time. Elena and Rebecca took positions in the kitchen, where they could observe the front entrance while remaining hidden behind the large center island. Agent Wells and Detective Foster waited in the formal living room, their badges and handcuffs ready but concealed. Sarah Chen positioned herself in the dining room, surrounded by perfectly organized evidence folders. And I sat in the master bedroom's window seat, watching the circular driveway like a general surveying her battlefield, wearing the red dress I'd been saving for a special occasion. Today qualified. At exactly 9:37 a.m., my mother's silver BMW pulled through the estate gates, followed by Madison's white Mercedes and Tyler's pickup truck. They parked in formation, like they were preparing to storm a castle, which I suppose they were. "Showtime," Marcus whispered into our communication system. Through the window, I watched my family's reunion with fascination. They huddled together on the driveway, gesturing animatedly at the house. My mother kept pointing at the windows, probably explaining how each room matched her Pinterest boards exactly. Madison was recording everything on her phone, no doubt planning to document this as another family crisis for social media sympathy. Tyler walked the perimeter first, testing windows and doors like a professional burglar. When everything proved securely locked, he returned to the group with a shrug that clearly communicated, "We're going to have to break in." My father produced a toolkit from his trunk that would have impressed a career criminal. Bolt cutters, a crowbar, several screwdrivers, and what appeared to be a small sledgehammer. They'd come prepared for war. "This is it," my mother declared loudly enough for our cameras to capture every word. "This is our house. I don't care what game Seraphina thinks she's playing, but we're taking back what belongs to us." "Mom, maybe we should call someone first," Madison suggested hesitantly. "Like, what if she actually owns it legally?" "She's been legally dead for 15 years, my father snapped. "Dead people don't buy houses, Madison. She's squatting in our property, and we're going to remove her." Tyler laughed, a sound that chilled my blood even from 4 floors up. "Besides, it's not like she can call the police. She'd have to explain how a dead person bought a house, and then they'd realize she's been committing fraud." The projection was breathtaking. My family, who had built their entire lifestyle on fraudulent death benefits, was accusing me of fraud for the crime of being alive. My father approached the front door with his bolt cutters, positioning them around the decorative ironwork. The sound of metal cutting through metal rang across the morning air like a dinner bell for justice. "That's breaking and entering," Detective Foster whispered into our communication system. "We've got them." But I wanted more. I wanted them to fully commit to their criminal behavior, to demonstrate beyond any doubt that their entitlement knew no bounds. The front door proved more challenging than they'd anticipated. After 20 minutes of cutting, prying, and increasingly creative profanity, they'd managed to damage the door frame significantly but hadn't gained entry. "Try the back door," Madison suggested. "It might be easier." They marched around the house like a small army, leaving a trail of property damage in their wake. Tyler kicked over decorative planters. Madison ripped down hanging flower baskets that blocked her path. My father used his crowbar on a window screen, leaving gouges in the siding. When the back door proved equally secure, my mother lost what remained of her composure. "This is ridiculous," she shrieked. "It's Christmas morning. We should be in our house, opening presents, making breakfast in our kitchen. Instead, we're standing outside like criminals because our selfish daughter thinks she can steal our dreams. She's not even supposed to exist." Tyler added, "We've been planning this Christmas for months." That's when my father made the decision that sealed their fate forever. He raised his sledgehammer and brought it down on the gorgeous French doors that led from the back patio into the kitchen. Glass exploded inward, triggering the house's alarm system. The sound was deafening: sirens, bells, and automated announcements that the police had been notified of a break-in. "Fuck the alarm," my father shouted over the noise. "We're already here." They climbed through the broken doors, stepping over shattered glass and twisted metal, officially crossing from property damage into home invasion. Our cameras captured everything in stunning high definition, their faces tight with entitlement, their movements quick with guilt, their words heavy with self-justification. "Where is she?" my mother demanded, stomping through my kitchen in muddy boots, leaving tracks across the marble floors she'd dreamed of for years. "Seraphina," Madison called out, her voice echoing through the house. "We know you're here. Come face us like an adult." They spread through the house like locusts, touching everything, claiming everything, treating my property like it had always belonged to them. Tyler immediately gravitating to the library, running his hands over book spines. Madison posing for selfies in the formal dining room. My parents exploring the master suite, my mother opening dresser drawers, and my father testing the firmness of the bed. This should have been ours, my mother said, tears streaming down her face as she stood in the walk-in closet she'd fantasized about for years. We worked so hard for this. We sacrificed everything. The complete absence of self-awareness was stunning. They had sacrificed everything, their integrity, their humanity, their relationship with their living daughter, but somehow they'd convinced themselves they were the victims. That's when I made my entrance. I appeared at the top of the staircase like a ghost materializing, wearing my red dress and a smile that could have frozen hell. The house fell silent except for the still blaring alarm system. "Merry Christmas, family," I called down to them, my voice carrying easily over the sirens. "I'm so glad you could make it. Though I have to say, your entrance was a bit more dramatic than I expected." The look on their faces was everything I'd hoped for and more. Shock, rage, confusion, and underneath it all, the first flicker of genuine fear. "How?" my mother whispered. "How what, Mom? How am I alive? How did I buy this house? How did I figure out you've been stealing money by pretending I'm dead?" I descended the stairs slowly, savoring every second. "Which particular impossibility are you struggling with?" That's when Agent Wells stepped out of the living room, her badge clearly visible. "Mr. and Mrs. Cross, I'm Agent Patricia Wells with the Social Security Administration. You're under arrest for federal benefit fraud." The silence that followed Agent Wells's announcement was broken only by the house alarm, which seemed to grow louder in the sudden stillness. I watched my family's faces cycle through emotions like a broken slot machine: disbelief, anger, terror, and finally, the dawning realization that their 15-year scheme had just collapsed in spectacular fashion. My father was the first to recover his voice. "This is entrapment," he shouted, pointing an accusatory finger at me. "She set us up. She forced us to break in." Detective Foster emerged from his position, handcuffs already in hand. "Sir, no one forced you to bring bolt cutters and a sledgehammer to someone else's property. You chose to break down that door all by yourself." Madison, ever the social media addict, was actually live streaming on Instagram, apparently thinking she could control the narrative in real time. "You guys, this is literally insane," she told her phone camera, tears streaming down her perfectly contoured cheeks. "My sister has completely lost her mind and called the police on us for visiting our own house." Madison, Rebecca Martinez said, stepping forward with her lawyer credentials clearly displayed, "You might want to stop recording. Everything you say is being documented as evidence." Madison's phone clattered to the floor. Tyler had gone completely silent, backing toward the broken patio doors like he might make a run for it. But Marcus appeared in that doorway, blocking his escape route with the calm confidence of someone who'd spent years dealing with fleeing criminals. "The whole property is surrounded," Marcus informed him casually. "Local police, federal agents, and some very interested neighbors with excellent video equipment." That's when my mother broke down completely. Not the delicate tears of a woman overwhelmed by circumstances, but the ugly, heaving sobs of someone whose entire constructed reality was crumbling in real time. "We needed the money," she wailed, collapsing onto my pristine white couch with her muddy boots and glass-covered clothes. "Do you have any idea how expensive it is to raise 2 children? Madison's dance lessons, Tyler's baseball equipment, the mortgage on the house we actually live in." "3 children," I corrected quietly. "You had 3 children, Mom. I was one of them." "You were different," she screamed, her composure completely shattered. "You were always so independent, so self-sufficient. Madison and Tyler needed us, but you just managed everything yourself. It was like you didn't even want to be part of the family." The psychological damage of that statement hit harder than I'd expected. Even now, caught red-handed in 15 years of fraud, she was blaming me for not being lovable enough to deserve inclusion. "So you killed me off," I said, my voice steady despite the pain. "You literally reported me dead because it was more convenient than being my parent." It wasn't supposed to hurt you, my father interjected as Agent Wells began reading him his rights. You were already living independently, working, going to college. The money helped us take care of the kids who actually needed us. Sarah Chin chose that moment to present them with the evidence folders, each one labeled with a different year of fraud. These documents tell a different story, she said crisply. They show a systematic pattern of financial abuse, identity theft, and deliberate exclusion of a vulnerable family member. Elena stepped forward with her laptop, projecting financial records onto the wall through a portable device she'd brought. Would you like to see exactly how much money you've stolen? Because I have spreadsheets. The numbers appeared in stark black and white. $144,000 in death benefits, $67,000 in fraudulent tax refunds, $89,000 in credit card debt accrued in my name, $200,000 in untouched education funds, and $45,000 from the memorial scholarship that had never been awarded to anyone. $500,000, Elena announced. You've stolen over $500,000 using your daughter's identity, while she worked multiple jobs and took out student loans for an education you could have funded easily. Madison was hyperventilating into a paper bag that Rebecca had provided. I didn't know, she kept repeating. I swear I didn't know about the money. I thought Seraphina was just weird. You knew enough, Tyler said suddenly, his first words since the police had arrived. You knew she never got Christmas presents. You knew she wasn't in family photos. You knew Mom and Dad acted like she didn't exist, and you never questioned it because it meant more attention for us. The honesty was startling, and it seemed to surprise Tyler as much as everyone else. He looked around the room, taking in the cameras, the agents, the evidence folders, and the magnitude of what his family had done. This is really bad, isn't it? He asked, his voice small and young despite his 26 years. Tyler, Detective Foster said gently, your parents committed federal crimes. That's prison time. But your involvement appears to have been minimal and unwitting. If you cooperate with the investigation, we can probably work out a deal. That's when the family dynamics I'd observed my entire life came into sharp focus. Madison immediately grabbed Tyler's arm, her survival instincts kicking in. Don't say anything without a lawyer. We stick together. But Tyler looked at me for the first time in years. Really looked at me, not through me or around me. Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. I don't know how to fix this, but I'm sorry. The use of my childhood nickname broke something loose in my chest. For just a moment, I saw my little brother again, not the entitled adult who'd just broken into my house. I know you are, I said softly. And Tyler? You can fix this by telling the truth. My parents were being handcuffed now, the reality of their situation finally sinking in. My father kept demanding to call his lawyer, while my mother alternated between sobbing and hurling accusations at everyone in sight. You're destroying this family. She screamed at me as Agent Wells guided her toward the door. Are you happy now? Are you satisfied? You've ruined Christmas. You've ruined everything. I watched my parents being led away in handcuffs, past the broken glass and damaged doors, past the neighbors who had gathered to witness the spectacle, past the life they'd built on lies and the daughter they'd sacrificed for money. And for the first time in 28 years, I felt something I'd never experienced before. Complete peace. Actually, Mom, I called after her, I'm having the best Christmas of my life. As the police cars pulled away with my parents in the back seats, Marcus began documenting the damage for insurance claims. Elena started organizing evidence for the prosecution. And Rebecca fielded calls from reporters who had somehow already gotten wind of the story. Madison and Tyler sat on my couch, holding each other and crying, processing the fact that their entire childhood had been built on fraud and their sister's stolen identity. But I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by people who had chosen to help me, looking out at the house I'd bought with my own money, in my own name, with my own legally alive identity, and I smiled. The little girl who used to watch Christmas from her bedroom window was finally home. 6 months later, I'm sitting in the same kitchen where my parents were arrested, but everything has changed. The broken patio doors have been replaced with something even more beautiful, and the house has transformed from a symbol of revenge into something I never expected, an actual home. The legal proceedings moved faster than anyone anticipated. My parents pled guilty to federal fraud charges in exchange for reduced sentences, 8 years for my father, 6 for my mother, full restitution plus penalties, and permanent bans from receiving any federal benefits. The judge called their case one of the most callous examples of family exploitation she'd seen in 30 years on the bench. Madison struggled the most with the aftermath. Her Instagram following imploded when the story went viral, and she spent 3 months in therapy trying to process the guilt of her complicity. But she's been coming to Sunday dinners for the past 2 months, slowly rebuilding a relationship with the sister she never really knew. It's awkward and painful sometimes, but it's honest in a way our family never was before. Tyler surprised everyone by testifying against our parents voluntarily. He moved in with me temporarily while sorting out his finances. Turns out his business had been funded with stolen money too, and he lost everything when the assets were seized. But he's been working construction during the day and taking community college classes at night, rebuilding his life from scratch with an integrity that's entirely new for our family. I never understood why you always seemed so separate from us, he told me last week while we were painting his new apartment. But now I realize you were the only one living in reality. The rest of us were living in a fantasy funded by crime. The money, all of it, has been recovered and then some. The court ordered my parents to pay damages beyond simple restitution, acknowledging the psychological harm and lost opportunities their fraud had caused. I used part of it to establish a real scholarship fund for students from dysfunctional families, the kind of thing my parents had pretended to do while keeping every penny for themselves. But the most unexpected change came from Marcus, Elena, Rebecca, Agent Wells, Detective Foster, and Sarah Chen. What started as a professional relationship evolved into something deeper during those intense months of legal proceedings. We began meeting for dinner every few weeks, initially to discuss the case, but eventually just because we enjoyed each other's company. Marcus and Elena started dating, bonding over their shared love of complex investigations and spreadsheets that most people would find mind-numbingly boring. Rebecca invited everyone to her family's 4th of July barbecue, where I met her parents, her siblings, and her 3 kids who immediately adopted me as Aunt Sarah. Agent Wells turned out to have a wicked sense of humor and a passion for mystery novels. Detective Foster moonlights as a chef and has been teaching me to cook properly. Sarah Chen became my running partner, and somewhere between mile 3 and mile 5 each morning, we've solved most of the world's problems. They didn't just help me get justice, they showed me what chosen family actually looks like. The house itself has become a gathering place. We host game nights, birthday parties, holiday celebrations that include everyone and exclude no one. The formal dining room where I'd planned to serve justice now regularly seats 12 for Rebecca's famous pasta nights. The library where Marcus installed surveillance equipment is now Tyler's study space. Madison has claimed the guest room with the best natural lighting for her photography hobby. Last Christmas, the first anniversary of the Great Breaking and Entering, as Tyler calls it, we hosted 37 people. Friends, chosen family, biological family members who'd earned their place back, and even some of the neighbors who'd witnessed the dramatic conclusion of my parents' fraud scheme. We set a place for my parents too. Not because we missed them, but because their empty chairs served as a powerful reminder of the difference between being related to someone and being family with them. The local newspaper wrote a feature story about the case, calling it the Christmas miracle that exposed a family's dark secret. The article has been shared thousands of times on social media, and I've received messages from hundreds of people who recognize their own family dynamics in my story. Some were children who'd been scapegoated and excluded. Others were parents who realized they'd been treating one child differently without understanding why. A few were people who'd discovered similar financial fraud by family members and needed guidance on how to proceed. I've started a blog called Chosen Family Chronicles, sharing resources for people dealing with family betrayal, narcissistic abuse, and financial exploitation. It's grown into a community of thousands of people who understand that blood doesn't automatically create bonds, but choice and respect can create unbreakable ones. But the most healing moment came 3 months ago, when I received a letter from a woman named Jennifer whose parents had been doing something similar to her brother. My story had given her the courage to investigate, and she'd uncovered years of financial abuse that she was now addressing legally. "Your courage to seek justice didn't just save you," she wrote. "It saved my brother and probably dozens of other people whose families read your story and realized they had to make a choice between enabling abuse and protecting their children." That's when I understood that my parents' betrayal, as painful as it was, had served a purpose beyond my personal vindication. It had become a cautionary tale, a roadmap, and a source of hope for people trapped in similar situations. Standing in my kitchen this morning, preparing breakfast for Madison and Tyler, who stayed over after last night's game night, I reflected on how completely my life has changed. The little girl who spent Christmases alone has become a woman surrounded by people who choose to celebrate with her. The daughter who was declared dead for convenience is now living more fully than she ever imagined possible. My phone buzzes with a text from Elena, "Sunday dinner at yours or mine this week?" Followed immediately by one from Marcus. Rebecca says she's making her famous lasagna either way, and then Sarah, "I'll bring dessert if someone else handles the wine." This is what family actually looks like. People who show up not because they have to, but because they want to. People who see your worth without needing to be convinced of it. People who stand by you when you're seeking justice, not because they're obligated to, but because they believe you deserve it. So tell me, have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and your own well-being? Have you discovered that the family you choose can be stronger than the one you're born into? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories help others feel less alone in their struggles. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales about overcoming family betrayal and building the life you deserve. Share this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to put yourself first when your family puts you last. Thank you for joining me on this journey from exclusion to empowerment. Remember, you deserve people in your life who see your value, celebrate your existence, and never make you question whether you're worthy of love. Here's to chosen families, second chances, and the sweetest revenge of all, living well.